The purpose of this video is to show you how to make a site layout diagram using Microsoft Visio. The first thing to do after installing Visio on your computer, of course, is to obtain the proper templates. We have templates that are in both the vertical and the horizontal aspects, so choose which one is most appropriate for your property based on the shape of the parcel. The next thing to do is to locate your property on Google Earth. For purposes of this training, I'm going to use this gas station property, which we can see at this corner of this intersection. So you want to zoom in on your property and make the subject property take up the bulk of the image. Remember, this is a site layout diagram, so we're focusing on the subject property. We do, however, want to include the adjacent properties as part of that diagram. So I'm zoomed in pretty well here, and now what I'm going to do is take a screen capture. I simply hit the print screen button on my computer. You may have to hit an F1 or a shift or something like that on your computer to take a screen capture. So print screen captures that. Now I'm going to minimize Google Earth, back to my Visio template, and hit Control V. You might also try using paste or insert on your computer, depending on how you have it set up. So I'm sure you're aware there are multiple ways of doing the exact same thing. Okay, now we have our image and it's inserted over the template, but this doesn't look very good, does it? We've got all this extraneous aspects of the image around. So what we're going to do is trim this and make it fit. So up in the upper left hand corner I have a cropping tool. This toolbar, like with any program, can be customized by each user. So your cropping tool may or may not show up in that exact location, or you may need to add it to your toolbar. So now I'm just going to trim off some of this extra stuff that we don't want as part of our image. Like this. And the idea is to end up with a shape that's about the same as the template, and with the subject property taking up the majority of the image, but again just leaving in enough room that we can put in the adjacent properties. Now Microsoft Visio does have a few quirks. You end up clicking on the wrong thing and moving the wrong aspects of your picture a lot, but fortunately we have an undo button up here, so don't worry about that. Now I'm going to center this picture. Each time you use any of the items on the toolbar, you need to go back to this white arrow, this pointer tool, to be able to select your item and move it or resize it. So I click on that pointer arrow, I'll center my picture, and now I'll stretch it out from the corners so that it doesn't distort the image, so that it's filling up pretty much as much of the image space as I can. Okay, now we're ready to start making our diagram. In Visio, you can freeform draw all you want. There's lines and ovals and circles and squares that you can click on. But one of the easiest things to do is to make shapes and then save them. So I have my shapes, favorites, and these are shapes that I've made and just saved because they're images that I use over and over again. Now, how exactly to do that is beyond the scope of this particular video. That'll be covered under a different video. But I just wanted you to make you aware that you can do that, and it will make drawing your diagrams simple. So I'm just going to take a rectangle, drag it rather onto my image, stretch it out so that it depicts my property boundaries. And eventually I'm going to get rid of this Google Earth image and we'll just be left with our diagram. So for the property boundary, I want that to be a thicker line than that little one there. So if I right click on that, it will bring up some formatting menus. I'm going to format the line and make it thicker. So it's on a weight 3. I'm going to change it. I find 17 usually works pretty well. Now we'll start adding in some features. here's our gas station building. I'll show you how to freeform draw in a subsequent video, but for this one let's just assume that it's a rectangular shape and just draw or drag a rectangle over the gas station building. But we can see this one, it really isn't rectangular shaped. South of the building we have the fuel island canopy, so I'll just put another rectangle over there. I normally put in the fuel dispensers. Again, just drag a rectangle over, shrink it down, make it fit. And you can see with that one I grabbed the wrong square, but I'm just going to hit the back button and there we go. I'm just going to put in one dispenser for now. We've got the underground storage tanks to the right of the fuel island canopy. Again, I've already made myself an icon for underground storage tanks, so I'm just going to drag it over and pop it on here. There's 3 underground storage tanks at this property. I'm just going to put one in for now, but you could easily just drag more over, or right click this and do copy and paste and make multiple images of your underground storage tank. We also want to have adjacent roadways. Again, I've made myself a little template for roadways. It's just basically a fat bar that I can drag onto there, stretch it out, and then when I double click on this, it allows me to type text on there. So we'll just call that Main Street. So our property is at an intersection. So we'll take another one of those roads, drag it over here, turn it vertical, stretch it out. I'm not going to worry about being real neat on this. The idea is just to give you a basic overview. We'll call that one North Street. Notice at the bottom it says no scale. That's because I'm trying to keep generally to scale on my subject property. However, if you try to do that with the whole image, in order to get in adjacent properties, you end up having to shrink the subject property down so small that you don't have a lot of room for detail. So this diagram is not going to be to scale. You can see the road here. I've just got a relatively thin line, whereas the road would actually be several inches across if I were to try to do it to scale. So we can add more features as we want. Now, if you recall, I said we're going to get rid of the Google Earth image, and that's just going to leave us with our site layout diagram. There's 2 ways to get rid of that image. We could click on the image and then hit delete, but here's a better trick. Click on the image. You can always tell which aspect of your Visio image is selected by the little green lines and squares that surround whatever element you have. So again, click on the image. We can see that I have the image selected, and in my upper left here there's a transparency tool. Transparency, it tells how clear I'm going to make that particular object. So I just double click on it, or single click rather, and I'm going to slide the transparency selector to 100%. Now when I click OK, you see the Google image is gone. In fact, it is still there, it's just 100% clear. Now this is very useful, especially for the person doing QA, QC, or if you are a site walker and you're preparing the image and somebody else is writing a report. It's very nice to have that image actually there, and then the person can go back if they want, and they could just slide the transparency back, and the image is there again. So let's remove that once more. Now you can see when the image is actually there, it's very cluttered, it's hard to see things. Now we can start labeling items on our picture, and we can see what we're doing. So here's a text tool. Simply click on that and then draw a little box. It's not going to have any outlines. That's just a placeholder for the text. And we could label it however we want. Okay, so this is, we'll call that a parking area. And again, once we're done with our text, we always want to go back to that white pointer tool. So now we can add in as many details as we want. Be sure and add in the surrounding properties. And let's see what this diagram looks like for this property once it's completed. So here we have the subject property with the outline. We've got the building. There was a car wash here. There was an interceptor. We've got the adjacent properties and their addresses. You'll notice sometimes there wasn't an available address, so we simply indicate on there that this was a storage lot, didn't have a posted address. Be sure that you have the subject property address, the complete address. Make certain that you have your north arrow, and please put north at the top. Occasionally we see people putting south at the top, and it makes it very confusing to look at a picture with south at the top. I've made a little image here, a subject property arrow, so that it's clear where our property is. And pretty much this is the level of detail that we're looking for our site layout diagrams. We're not looking for a great work of art that can be hung in a museum. We're simply looking for a reasonably to scale diagram that shows the subject property, key site features, and the subject property in relationship to adjacent properties. Okay, well that ends it for this video. Other than the comment, be sure and save your work before you exit the program, otherwise it's all been for naught. Okay, look forward to future videos for additional details as to how to use Visio. Thank you very much.